Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1732. The topic is Q&A and the title is Improving Confidence. One of my clients, they're a business client, meaning we're kind of communicating every single week. We do Zooms every week. They're going through a transition in their career. They reached out and asked for some help. So we've been working together. And a recent discussion we had is they're just struggling a bit with confidence. So they've been a trainer for a while. I think about almost 10 years. And they just opened up their own studio. So they were doing really well at a gym. They built up their clientele. They were training, 40 plus hours a week, but they were only making around 30-ish% of the money. So they're like, okay, let me take all the potential earnings here from how hard I'm working, and I'm going to put that into my own studio. So they opened up their own studio. They brought in 2 other trainers that they're having to teach, and they're wanting to essentially just make sure they have a united front on how they're training all of their clients. But they're feeling a little overwhelmed. There are 2 things that I told them in a recent discussion with their online journal, and then we kind of expanded on it in their weekly Zoom, that I thought would be good to share. So I want to kind of read through what I wrote, and then let's kind of talk about it. So I said, I know you're struggling with confidence, but here are 2 things I want you to remind yourself of. Number 1, all high performers struggle with confidence. It is a literal fact that everybody who is a high performer, there's a ridiculously high level of anxiety and pressure and self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, when you deal with high performers. This is something you can look at. I read and listen to audiobooks all the time about business improvement and self-improvement, and this is an overwhelming research thing. I mean, it just is what it is. If you're a very high performer and you do excellent in your job, you are going to question yourself more, and you're going to struggle with confidence and imposter syndrome. That's just part of the process. Now, that was me all just ad-libbing. So I'll go back to what I wrote to him. So I said, all high performers struggle with confidence. It's part of what drives them to continue to improve. So although it can be overwhelming, with the right balance, it can be your superpower. And what we discussed in the Zoom was you don't want to take that away. You don't want to take away kind of self-reflection. And we want to rename it, instead of saying like, I think I'm screwing anything up or I'm uncertain of what I'm doing, just say, I did some things this week. Let me look at them. Let me reflect and see what I could take away from that. And that's kind of the idea. So we want to do self-reflection. We want to think of our questioning ourselves as an opportunity for self-reflection more than it is us feeling uncertain of ourselves. We're just going to say, hey, I did some things. Let me look at how they went. Let me see what I can learn, and let's move on. So first of all, that's the first thing I told him is that all high performers struggle with self-confidence and imposter syndrome. Very normal. You're not alone. Very normal. The second thing I told him was 100% of the time, you are doing better than you think you are. 100% of the time, you are doing better than you think you are. We don't give enough credit to the things we do right. We question the things we're unsure of, and we dwell on the things we need to improve, quote unquote, the things we may have done wrong. To give yourself more confidence, remind yourself often of the things you're doing right. Still question the things you're unsure of, and for the things you need to improve on, when they happen, find a lesson you can apply to the future and then mentally move on. I also reminded him, you're doing things you never would have dreamed of 5 years ago. Remember how far you've come. And these are 2 things that I think a lot of people can benefit from when you're struggling with confidence. Is all high performers struggle with confidence. So you're not alone. It doesn't mean you're messing everything up. If anything, it actually is a sign that you're doing better than most, because you're questioning, you're wondering, you're trying to improve, you're working on yourself. When you have self-doubt, if you use that to reflect on what you've done and you can find ways to improve, when that is emotionally and mentally well-balanced process, it is your superpower. It is what will make you great, is continuing to find how great you can be. Then the second thing is, you're always, 100% of the time doing better than you think you are. Flip your focus. Okay? I want you to tell yourself that. When you have moments of self-doubt, flip your focus. Too often, as I wrote to them, we don't give enough credit to the things we do right. We question the things we're unsure of, and we dwell on the things we need to improve. Let's flip the focus. Remind yourself of what went right this past week or today, or whenever you're having the moment of self-doubt. Say, what did I do recently that went well? Literally sit there and think of it. Focus on it. Dwell on that. Dwell on what you've done right. It's okay and normal and appropriate to question the things you're not sure of. Reflect on those things. Figure out what you could do. And then absolutely on anything that you know you messed up or you think you messed up or areas that you want to improve on, say, okay, well, given the experiences I've had today, given the experiences I've had this past week, what is a lesson that I can apply to the future? If I can identify a lesson that I can apply to the future, then I'm going to move on. I'm not going to think about those things anymore. I got the experience. I got the value of those experiences in the lesson that I'm going to move on with and apply. Those moments are done. I got what I needed. I'm moving on. I'm looking forward. Okay? So if you're struggling with confidence, think through those two concepts. Remind yourself that all performers, all high performers, struggle with confidence. And remind yourself that 100% of the time, you're doing better than you think you are. Flip your focus. Remind yourself of what you're doing well. Still question the things you're unsure of. And learn the lesson you need to from mistakes, but move on. Okay. Hopefully that'll help. I wish you the best of luck. If you're struggling with anything, if you need anything, reach out. My email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you like our podcast, please share the podcast. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on our website. And if you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us under the name Brutal Iron Gym on Instagram and YouTube. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.